There is one most important transition in the human life, and this is the transition from external to internal. This is your transition from the state of being so little in this big world into being so big in this little world. This is a transition from the state of fear to the state of love. And this is also the transition from the state of you being lost and scared and you thinking that you have to find answers in the external to the state of you experimenting with the world, to the state of you playing with whatever comes your way and you simply having fun. This is also the transition that marks your conscious understanding of your need to help others. It is a known fact that a true spiritual awakening is accompanied by your desire to be of service to other people. So, in this transition, you start asking yourself questions. How do I benefit the society? What is there inside of me that can unlock certain doors for other people? What is there that I have that can be useful to help others, to help other realities? This is the state where you start to create more than you consume because you understand that you yourself have access to that consciousness. You yourself have access to the divine that can bring certain answers through you, brings them into fruition. When you start asking the questions like this, you start looking for the answers in the only place where you can possibly find them, inside of yourself, because you realize that inside of you there is this ocean of consciousness in which you can plunge. You can dive right into it and you can take out something that divine, the God life, whatever that is, and however you want to call it, put inside of you. So you start looking inwards. When you're still in the stage of looking for the answers in external reality, what happens is that you consume certain literature in order to understand how to proceed forward. You consume certain literature in order to be of benefit to other people. You try to memorize it, not necessarily literature, any source of information. So you hook onto other people's realities in order to prove to yourself that you can also be worthy, in order to take something from them and repeat them. So you intend through their language to get access to their source of consciousness, to their own answers inside of their being. You do not even realize it, obviously, but you're looking at the wrong place. Because in there, you will only find the interpretation of their own gift that they have to give to the world. You cannot find your own. You don't only disconnect from yourself, but you're also interpreting the words that other people used to express themselves. This is a no-win situation. So basically, you can see the process of growth in life is you first exploring the external, you first trying to get answers in the external. This is the phase where you grow. This is the phase where sensitive people have more intense growth. They have more desire to grow because they have the degree of honesty within themselves to understand that nothing can bring peace from the external. So they keep looking, they're trying to understand how reality operates, but there is always a certain level of suffering. Because while you're in that stage, you're trying to mute your suffering from the external. You're trying to find the answers in the place where they cannot possibly be. But in that stage, you grow. In that stage, you try to expand your awareness, and you are doing so. And life keeps showing you where are your weak spots. Life keeps showing you, and life keeps guiding you towards your own authentic path. Everything in that stage, during that stage, is aimed at making you look into yourself, at making you look into your internal reality, at making you connect to the source yourself and unlock the gifts of precious you that you have, and only you have access to them. So, no matter how long you're in that stage, all your external reality will guide you towards your authentic path. You will never find peace, you will never find happiness, you will never find anything that can bring you this total state of detachment from the external reality. Because while you are in that stage, you're by definition attached. So everything in that stage guides you towards detachment. Everything in that stage is showing you where you're still attached, and it is showing you it cannot go that way. When you transition when you start understanding what is going on, when you also start experimenting with the first fear of yours, you look into them, you solve them, you expand your awareness, and you grow, and you understand that this is how the life works. You understand that your experience here is basically defined by you being one with everything else. Your gifts are lying, lurking in that state of being one with everything else. So you start experiencing a better reality for yourself the more you use your fear and the more you use your external reality in order to accelerate and in order to expand. And then at some point, you arrive to that transition because you are now willing to arrive. If at the first stages it is your suffering that kept pushing you forward, it is your suffering that kept telling you, look here, solve this, look there, solve that. You now want to do this even more, and you become more aware of the smallest sufferings, of the smallest conditionings that you have inside of yourself, because you expanded your awareness. So now you feel yourself even on a deeper level, and now you also see how it brings you benefit. So you start looking for it, you consciously go into it. And then at some point, you transition into the phase of unconditional love towards yourself. So you can basically imagine the whole process as you going from a grounded place where you think you know who you are, when you think you know your identity, when you know things about yourself. You then go up in the clouds because you have a certain kind of spiritual awakening, whatever form it takes. And it takes different form for different people. This is the place where you reevaluate your internal belief system, because you see that the reflection of that internal belief system, which is your external reality, is not something that you would want. You start understanding that the way that you grow up, the way you have been conditioned, no longer serves you. You start understanding that you attached yourself to certain things in the external, and that's why, because you keep looking for joy in those things, you're missing out on joy because it is not there. So you turn inwards, and this is why it gives this effect of going up to the clouds, because you no longer have, for that period of time, this big of an interest in the external reality, because you understand that the answers are not there. So you start looking inside. This is also the phase where you have this depth within yourself. When you connect in yourself to the source, you approach it, approach it, and approach it. And the deeper you go within yourself, the more your awareness expands, the higher your consciousness goes, and the closer you are to the collective consciousness. This is the place where you kind of start also seeing other people as literally the reflection of you. You understand that you are bound by the same life, by the same current, and there is just a role in your lives that you are playing. The deeper you can get inside of yourself, the more you will feel that feeling. And the more you feel that, the more grounded you become. So this is the process of descension back to the grounded place. You reinvent yourself, but on a deeper level, from the higher states of consciousness, because you uncover depths within yourself. When you rise up, you basically have an experience of the ego death, right? What's often accompanied by the dark night of the soul. You have that experience, and you feel like you're kind of no one, because you are immersed in your own shadow. You are immersed in those aspects of your personality that do not really belong to you, that is not authentic you. And that's why, because you're immersed into them, because life forces you to really get and look and experience that shadow full on, because this is the only way you can transmute it into the gift. You feel like you're no one, because instead of being submerged into the aspects of your being that are actually luminous, that are actually so bright, that are actually so tasty and colorful for you, and that you know very well, you're submerged in the part of yourself that you do not know very well, that you have to reinvent. And this kind of gives this feeling of being no one, because you do not understand who you are, because you are only dealing with the part of yourself that you do not know yet. But then, the deeper you solve that, the deeper you go within yourself, the more you start experiencing this principle of synchronicity and this principle of oneness with everything, the more grounded you become back. So you descend back because you now start transmuting the shadows into gifts, and you emerge as a brand new person in the physical realm, and you are back grounded again. In this cycle, there is also the attention that first goes into yourself. So you start paying less attention to the environment, but then it increases the more you reinvent yourself. Our process of growth is our process of understanding that our reality is us. It is our process of understanding that the external playground that you see in life is simply for you to find certain clues, to derive certain answers about yourself, because it is you who is generating that external reality, and use those clues in order to create a better reality for yourself and in order to change, in order to develop. The journey is the destination. So it is your process of change. The deeper you can see the reality, the more you can pay attention to the things outside of you and use life as your whole guiding mechanism, as the only compass that you have, right? So do not use those teachings that you have in your mind about how you should be, how the world operates, those things that were told to you by your parents, by society, by other people. The more you can detach from that, the more you start paying attention to the life itself, because you become like a child. You arrive home. The child is curious in everything. The child just wants to play around, to find out. The child approaches every situation and every challenge with pure curiosity, with pure interest. How can I deal with this? What can I learn from this? When an adult human being who hasn't gone through that process of awakening yet approaches a situation that he considers difficult, he doesn't approach a brand new situation. He has a whole baggage in himself, in his mind, about how he should be in that situation. I have no money, okay, let me freak out, let me generate all kinds of assumptions in my head about how difficult this situation is. If I have no partner and I'm already 30, let me just do all kind of crazy stuff and settle for someone and cry about it and be upset about it. The child doesn't have it because the child doesn't yet carry the baggage that were brought to the child by other people. So the more you free your mind from the attention to those teachings, to those other things, the rules about the world, the more you can naturally start paying attention to the life itself, because you do not occupy your mind with those thoughts anymore. So now when you approach the situation, you approach it with more attention. You're curious, you're free, you approach any challenge from the state of presence, because your attention now goes to the things that are happening in this exact moment. It is not enough to tell, oh, just be in the moment, because in order for you to be in the moment, you have to first get out of the cage that you put yourself in. You have to first get out of those thoughts and those teachings that you have inside of you that literally obstruct the present moment from you. You dream of a greater captivity because your mind does not know freedom. A person that is not free cannot dream of freedom. Such people, they dream of a bigger cage because they cannot even imagine, they cannot even fathom that they can be completely free from any cage. The person who is in financial fear, in financial lack, wants more money because he dreams of mimicking that sense of freedom. But because he doesn't recognize the problem, he doesn't recognize that he can completely detach from his financial state, he interprets that feeling of freedom that is trying to grow inside of him as financial abundance, as having just more money. He's trying to mute that. And when he gets more money, the same thing repeats himself, because he cannot do it another way around, because inside of him there is still financial lack. So it doesn't matter how much money he gets in the external reality, unless he does those internal changes, it's gonna revert back to the beginning, to the square one. And when he gets more money, he will try to get more money and more money and more money, because he will keep trying to expand his own cage, but he's still in the cage. And there are numerous examples of it when you are dreaming of, let's say, stepping out of your household, if you're living with your parents, if you're constantly told what to do, or if you're in a toxic relationship and you cannot leave, you are dreaming of that relationship solving itself and of that another person changing, but you do not realize that if you were free, you would completely walk away. In other words, freedom strips you of any reason of staying the same, because you are not in the cage. You can go wherever you want. You can go live your life. So when you arrive back to that point, when you start paying attention finally, you are free to explore, because you finally live in freedom. You do not live in the cage anymore. And when you're free to explore, you become of benefit to other people because you do not have any other motivation to do anything besides bringing out your gifts. You start understanding that life is flowing through you, that you have an access to the pool of consciousness, to the flow of consciousness, in order to understand what has to be said in this exact moment, in order to understand how you have to act in this exact moment, in order for everyone, for the society to benefit, in order for everyone to grow, because we are all one and we are all moving together. When you start paying attention, you're using life in order to become more in one, more in tune with the whole world, and in order to keep going. This attention thing also lets you completely detach from the external reality and mimic any feelings that you want within yourself. This is the stage where you have peace within yourself because you are paying attention enough in order to manipulate your feelings, in order to make them completely independent from the external reality. This is why you live in happiness and this is why you live in joy. You do not have those negative things in your mind anymore. This is also the point where you stop having any addictions. Whatever you had, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, it just goes away. And it goes away naturally because those things were initially used in order to make you less consciousness and less perceptive to those negative vibrations, to some things that you were taught and you do not want to follow. They gave you the feeling of that baggage that you were carrying with yourself to be dropped. So they mute your sensitivity to the lower states of consciousness. That's why people who become very much of benefit to society, who do a lot of things in their life, who become very successful, they often have many habits before their path to success, before they became themselves. They have many bad habits because such people are put in a society and they have to fit into that society as in the box. They're bigger. They're bigger in their mind. They're trying to fit themselves into something that they shouldn't be fit in. And they feel those negative influences, but they cannot realize that they can simply drop them and stop following them because it is our natural desire to socialize, to fit in, to be like everyone else. We are taught how we should be by family, society, and so on. So we try to fit in. And when we do not fit in, the first reaction is there is something wrong with me. So in that state, you would use those negative substances in order to run away from that. But when you emerge as your new self, when you start paying attention, when you free your mind from the baggage that you had, those substances are no longer needed. This is how you get out of any addiction. This is also what is used in Alcoholic Anonymous, I think it's called in English, by the AA, the 12-step program. They dissolve their ego. They become bigger than themselves because they get rid of the parts of the identity of themselves that had that negative influence on them that caused them to drink at the first place. And this program, since then, have been adopted by many, many others self-help organizations. This is the only program that proved itself working numerous and numerous times because this is the only program that takes into account not just fighting the effect of the internal problem, but going inside of yourself in order to take out the root of the problem. This is why it works. Because people become bigger than their identity. They destroy the cage completely because they become aware that they were drinking simply because they dreamt of a bigger cage. When you free your attention, when you ground yourself in a new way, and when you emerge as your authentic self and you become on your authentic path, you start to create more than you consume because you understand that you are here for a reason. You understand that you are useful to other people. And it doesn't matter in what sense you create. It doesn't have to be something that is creative conventionally, right? Like videos, music, art, anything like that. It is simply a creation that is an expression of that person. And that creation goes with them at every stage. Even when they read something, they still create because that reading, that book that they picked up allows them to connect with themselves more because they use right now external reality only as a mean to connect to themselves on a deeper level and to express themselves more fully. They do not create in order to become famous, in order to become successful, in order to satisfy themselves. Their creation is pure. This is why they do not need any other creations in order to create, because they're not creating from the memory. They're creating from themselves, from their heart.